Well, Mark, defeat in Cheshire this afternoon brings our FA Cup journey to an end. How do you reflect on the team's performance this afternoon?
Really disappointing. We set up to match them and go man for man, and on the day, you know, just admitted in the dressing room that we didn't have a player who did more than what they did. So it became frustrating, and then a few heads went down, and all the disappointing things that happen when it's not going your way, and rather than stepping up and showing leadership and character, they went the other way today. A few players and found it tough, and it's a real disappointment. We were looking forward to this game. We felt we were in a good place, fully prepared, and in the end, deservedly got well beaten.
You made a few changes before the game today, bringing in Brad Holmes. Was that due to him starting recently and getting a few goals and fighting and giving some competition for Jimmy?
Well, the thought behind it was that last week we set up to um, try and very much tactically stop the opposition. In the end, we had a go at them, and they looked vulnerable when we was on the front foot and we were positive. A lot of feedback from the players and the management staff was, you know, we should be positive from the start. Why don't we have a goal at Chester? Um, and that was the decision made, that Brad comes into the team, Tony Weston comes in, Crispin comes in, and we try and be really positive in what we do and how we're going to do it. The wind had a little bit of a factor the first half, where we got in a sort of mindset of passing it about across the back with no real purpose, and it's they were always set to pounce on us, really, when if we give it away or made a sloppy error, and we made far too many errors today, and that was in both halves.
And like you said to me last week, obviously the goals against South Shields coming through forced errors, and it seemed like the same case again today. How do you, as management staff, try and reduce that when you come out onto a match day, and make sure that you aren't conceding goals through forced errors?
It's difficult because the inexperience of players is what can cost you. They've not visited these situations often enough, and they don't have the answers when the questions are made on the pitch. As a group of lads, they work incredibly hard every week in training. Um, they're here for the right reasons. They're all desperate to play. I've just said in the dressing room, every single one of our squad, has had ample opportunity to make a claim and to make that shirt their own every single week. And at the moment, there's not doing enough to get that shirt. So I've got to think about who should play, how they should play. Once they go out on the pitch, we want to see the best version of them. And at the moment, with the inexperience that a lot of them have, they're just falling a little bit short. And when you come to places like this, if you let them get on top, it's tough. We came here in the league and the crowd was silent until we made a little error, then they hit the crossbar, and then all of a sudden the crowd's up and they're up as a team. Today we made a lot of mistakes. Credit to them, forcing them mistakes, but we've got to be better. We've got to be stronger. If we matched up, it's the simplest tactic to use. It is to match people up and play man for man, and say, can you be better than that man on the day? And if you get 7 or 8 who are better, you're in a good place. Unfortunately, we didn't really have a man today who stepped up and was better than the individual he played against, and that's why it was a tough afternoon.
And obviously, when you went in at half time, 2-0 down, like you said, it's already difficult coming to a place like this, especially when the fans are behind Chester. What did you say to the players at half time before they came out for the second half?
Well, at half time, I let some of the senior players talk at first. we felt we weren't getting the ball forward quickly enough. At times, we fell into the pattern of playing square. Um, I changed, the centre half pairing because we didn't have the balance. Having two right-footed centre halves on wasn't working, so I put Joe Lamado on as a left-footed centre half, just to give us balance to maybe play forward a little bit quicker. Um, but the mistakes just kept coming, and they dominated certain areas of the pitch, and we couldn't, we couldn't get a grip to how they played, and they seemed to have a spare man in midfield too often, and they punished us through it.
It's a ground, obviously, in recent years that Curzon have had quite good success on, but like you said today, it just seemed like nothing was really happening.
Yeah,
Obviously, how frustrating is that for you?
but it's the process of, when you've got a relatively new group of players, that where we're at. We did come here in the league and get a draw through playing quite defensively. Um, we come here and be a little bit more open, and we can see goals, and it's it's getting that balance right, and having your players on the day play to their maximum or as close to the maximum as possible. And as a group today, we just didn't get going. And like I say, in individual battles, they won far more than we did. And that was when we put the subs on as well. I tried to change it. I tried to give as many people the opportunity to go again and say, I want to play next week, and we didn't get enough out of anybody today. And when you don't play well as a group, you are going to suffer, especially if you're making individual errors at the back as well, which we did in the second half.
And obviously, Jimmy did get a consolation goal at the end. Obviously, someone who's maybe not scored maybe as much as you would have liked. How good is that for him to get a goal for his confidence?
He was just very frustrated. We've had two very good seasons. We've been lucky at the club, uh, and now we're in a place where we've got to work incredibly hard you know, to establish yourself again in this league, and make sure that we're competitive in it. And Jimmy gives his all every week. It's good to see him get a goal, and not get overly frustrated, because in the past he can get too frustrated, and that we can lose in them for games after that. But he showed what a captain should show. He never give up. He worked hard. Wouldn't say he had a great game today, but you know that you're going to get that from him. And we need as much as possible from them senior players in the dressing room, on the training pitch and on the match pitch, to help the younger element of the team who at the moment are just falling short.
And finally, next weekend we're back on the road against Oxford. What needs to be put right from today's game against Oxford to hopefully get a positive result over there?
It's an all round package of believing in yourself, and that's a really difficult skill to achieve. We want to go and and be exciting, but we've got to get that balance right of how open we are, how close we are to the opposition, how often we can win 50-50 battles with players. So we'll be working as we always do in training next week to put it right. And there'll be a lot of the lads hurting today, as I am. And we've just got to go into next week and see if we can turn things around. It's a nice AstroTurf pitch, and most probably the best AstroTurf pitch in the league. But another tough game. There's no easy ones. So attitude and effort we just need to get them decisions better as well.